All right, let's do a little Sunday sermon and a little bit of update. So, I had a little close call earlier this week, and I realized how vulnerable I am, and that I really just need to find a more stable place to be. I'm looking for investors. Anybody that wants to invest in me, invest in a movie, any of the ideas that I have. That would be great, and I can work out some really nice terms for you. And then if you like your return on investment, then we can do it again and do some other projects. I'm looking for warehouse properties. You can go on LoopNet and look in central to southern Texas. I like to stay away from the city centers. I just want someplace basically out in the country, which is most of Texas is very rural. It's like little small towns. Even a retail space is okay, but the problem is that how do I say this? They don't take kindly to strangers. So typically, when somebody like me comes in, they see me as like a carpetbagger or somebody that needs to pay their dues or something like that. And so that's not really what I'm looking for in living in a town. I'd rather just sort of be independent and have something that preferably, like 4,000 square feet with a loading dock, that kind of thing. That used to be used as part of the, petrol industry or something like that. And now is like just whatever. And the budget is like no more than about $265,000. And as far as coming up with a down payment, I'll probably have to do hard money. So I have to come up with 10%, which is going to be tough, but I think I can do it. There's also a lot of small deals that we can do. In the meantime, I found a warehouse that is 100% leased, and it's only like 135. And so I only have to come up with 10%. But if the cash flow on it is good, then it's like that's free money. And that what it does is it gets my foot in the door in Texas, but it also starts putting me on the books for equity and things that banks like to see on a balance sheet. So I know, boring stuff, money stuff. You guys, most of you guys are not at that level, and that's fine. Most of you guys just want the stereo stuff or some of the insights I have. I did have a couple of things to clear. Butthurt Clients. So I had Colby Dobie get a little butthurt on me when I gave him a little too much truth. And if you really are like, I don't want to say in my DMs, but if you're like texting me and you feel like we have a rapport, the biggest step that you can probably make is that I have you in my phone. Okay, I have your name and address in my phone. Otherwise, it's just a client, and like just I'll sell you something, that's fine, whatever. But no, if you really want to get my opinion, it's going to get brutally honest, and a lot of people cannot take that. And to me, I crave it at this point. And that came up as a point last night between my wife and I, is that when we met, of course, we were both very young. I was 19 and she was like 22. And, it's a lot of fucking and a lot of, good times and, movies and dinners and things like that. And as we matured and as my career changed, her career really hasn't changed except for that she's not working right now because of COVID related stuff. But, as my career changed, I went through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of disappointments and things like that, all aspects of life. And it was what I observed last night was that of how I've dealt with it. So a lot of the things that I've learned in being in a long-term relationship is that people deal with bad news in different ways. So for me, again, when I was in Hawaii, I felt really trapped. And a lot of that was, some of that was island fever because you get that. But it's also because I'm, the Air Force owns you or the military or the government owns you and they let you know that they own you. And that was a little, suffocating. But I remember I bought Tony Robbins, I think it was Awaken the Giant. I can't remember. It was one of those ones. And one of the things that I still use, I don't use it anymore, but I used it for years. I didn't know I was bipolar, but the risperidone really helps me sleep. That's really what helps keep my body clock on target. But when I didn't know I was bipolar and I had trouble sleeping at night, my mind would start racing. He talked about doing big, deep breaths and then also tightening up your body. That was something they taught us in basic training too, was to tighten up your body and hold your breath and then let it all out at once. And then the idea though is to get you to relax. So, and also just meditative breathing. So of course, my body chemistry is much different than when I was in my 20s, and so I'm able to control a lot of my emotions. I'm able to control a lot of my urges a lot better. And for guys that have trouble with that, I would highly recommend you get checked out to see if you might be bipolar. Most people are bipolar, and it has to do with getting sleep, and then some of it has to do with diet, and most people that are bipolar deal with it with alcohol because it makes them sleep or whatever and all that kind of stuff. Me, no, my genetic makeup says when we drink beer or whatever, we tend to party because we feel numb and good and all that kind of stuff. And it's not good for me. I'll say that. It's not good for me. It's not good for my constitution. What's good for me is a regimen and discipline and exercise and things like that. My body starts doing things that I want. And my life starts, falling into predicaments that are positive, if that's the way to phrase it. I think the biggest thing is basically that I wanted to talk about with Sherry was the example that I came up with, which was the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So when I was a kid, we'd go over here to Westwood Theaters over on Alma School and University, and we'd watch some flicks. I watched a lot of. They were real cheap. It was really good. It was an independent theater, United Artists, and one of the things they would show is the Rocky Horror Picture Show is like on whatever Friday or Saturday nights, whenever they would promote it. And here locally it was promoted by a rock station, KUPD, and as a kid, I never knew what it was. I never got it. I was like, that sounds like adult, that sounds like grown-up kids kind of stuff. And when I found out later what it was, I was not attracted to it. I mean, Susan in a bra looks really good, but or Janet, whatever you want to call her, is fine. But I talked to my wife about this, and Sherry, my wife, has fond memories of going to it and bonding with other, nerds or creative type of people or outcasts and freaks and weirdos and things like that. And the problem that I have now is I absolutely stay away from things like that. And what I realize is that there's a lot of people, and I see this a lot especially in the trans and gay communities, where they want to, they think that creating the life that you want is mostly about wishful thinking. And it's not. There are bills to pay, and there's a lot of adult stuff that you got to go through in order to get to that process and do it the way that you really want to do. That goes back to what I was talking about between like my body chemistry of when I was in my 20s versus now, which is late 40s. And there's a huge difference in choice making, patience, things like that. But my wife is still, her dad was pretty oppressive and her mom was pretty fearful, and that is still with her. She has not dealt with those things, and so it comes up a lot, and she tries to recreate things that are comfortable and safe and pleasurable. Two of the bad habits, I call them bad habits, that she picked up on was the whole Twilight thing, which is fine if, you're a teenager because you're going through that. The other one was playing like Farmville. So, but it's people that get lost in fantasy. It's like, I mean, the stereotypical is like when you go to, if you ever go or even just look at a video of like Comic-Con. And so Comic-Con, you'll see somebody that's fully committed to like a Boba Fett outfit, but they're like 300 pounds and they really shouldn't be wearing those clothes and things like that. But they're, for them, they're really psyched out to see it. And the problem is that what that person's really not addressing is other things in their life, and they're obsessing over something that doesn't fix the other problems in their life. So they're using it as an escape, as escapism. And you can use escapism for anything, whether it be guns or going to the dunes with your ATCs, or religion, or, in the case of my wife, Twilight, some sort of escape. And of course you can, Dragon Ball Z, and the list goes on of all things that are entertaining and distractive. And none of those things bring reward. None of those things bring satisfaction. And one of the things that I realized that I didn't have to do it, but I chose to do it, which was stepping up and being more adult. So one of the first acts that I did when I married Sherry was I realized I couldn't afford to put all my stuff in storage while I was going off to basic training. So, and I looked at everything and I kind of go, all this stuff is really replaceable. Why don't you just sell it? And so I sold it, and I came up with like $900, which was a lot of money for me back then. And so it's a lot of money for me now. But again, that's the way that I was able to handle my problems. And then of course, the commitment that I made to the Air Force, and it's a big commitment for the military, and I committed 4 years of my life. Luckily I only had to do 3, but that was a mutual separation. And you don't know that it's going to turn out as well as it did. For me, it turned out really well. There was, of course, when I got out, it was quite a shock, and I fell down on my face several times after that. And but I think I'm going back to is taking responsibility for your life, and setting aside things that are fun, like video games, and I don't know, dumb bullshit like smoking, or eating bad food and things like that. What I realized was that once I set those things aside and I started really focusing on what I really want and what's really important to me, that's when things started getting better. Now it wasn't right away. And that's the biggest thing that people, as soon as you threaten them with any sort of, discipline, and I don't mean discipline like I'm shaming you or I'm punishing you or something like that, like a parent does sometimes to their kids. I'm talking about discipline that, you make yourself do the right thing, whether it's a business transaction or if it's in traffic, or, I've noticed that even in the government, they don't recognize anybody that's trying to do good anymore. So in fact, I got to set up a special meeting with a lieutenant here at the substation by my house, for the police, to let him know that I'm a good person and I'm in the neighborhood, and for the cops to basically leave me alone and not to harass me. And because I ended up talking to a city inspector, and he's like, "Really? You do all that stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." I go, "Isn't that what we're supposed to do? If if you can do it?" And he goes, "Yeah, but nobody does that." And I was like, "Well, that's what's lacking from our society, is people contributing and people." And this is what came up for me and my wife, is that it's people loving is what it really is. That's really what we're talking about. So, and when I love, and when I love someone and I love something, I love it with my whole heart. And, my wife has a lot of trouble doing that, because she was taught that if you do that, someone's going to hurt you. And that's not always true. And it's better to have tough skin than live in a bubble for your whole life. So, and that's really what the differences that I've learned. And I started learning that lesson in my 20s. And while we were getting older together, I was creating a bubble for her to live in, and I wasn't challenging her. A lot of time was, because we get in, especially in our 20s, we get in big, fights where you end up having sex at the end and all that kind of stuff. Well, when there's no sex afterwards, there's no makeup, that's trouble, because it's like a debt that you owe each other, a debt of intimacy. And That's really one of the good things about sex. Of course, it's really about intimacy. It's not really about sex. Sometimes it is for guys, of course. You got to get the poison out. That's fine. And for girls, it's a dopamine hit. And it's also, to let your body know that, you still got it and you still going to use it. Things like that. So, of course, I'm very crude when I talk about this stuff like this. Here I am with a picture of Jizz Llama. And of course, that's about making fun of how personal and private people seem to guard themselves, when really things like that should be open and sort of common knowledge, and it really just depends on you to be a responsible adult about it. Children are the ones that you have to hide stuff from, or that you choose to hide. You don't have to. So you can expose children to all kinds of stuff if you just sort of hold their hand and guide them and help them explore their worlds and how to deal with adult situations. So one of the things that I wish somebody would have sat me down was that there's going to be a time where it doesn't matter what you do, whether you make one decision one way or the other way, there's going to be negative consequences. And so how do you navigate that? And that's a very difficult question. Even for grown adults, that's difficult, let alone for somebody that's immature, who doesn't have discipline and things like that. And sometimes that can lead to, huge, poverty issues or drug addiction or things like that, or alcoholism, because people just don't want to deal with their problems. And also, they don't have a support network and things like that. That's one of the reasons why, you don't want to get your kid pregnant at, whatever it is, 14 or 15. Number one, the shame, the stigma that carries, that, oh, you're letting your daughter have sex, or that, if you're the one that's getting pregnant, that, oh, I can't believe you did that. That's so irresponsible. It's not irresponsible. That's actually natural. And that's the way it's been going on for a million years. But for some reason now in our society, they don't provide a support network for an individual like that. And then they even, I'm not pro-abortion by any means, but that's one of the reasons why that becomes an option, is because there's no support network for a child, for a young mother in that sort of situation. When really everybody should gather around, including the neighborhood, to help take care of this baby and raise it, to be a outstanding human being. And that if your daughter does get, as they say, knocked up, that's not, that if anything, take responsibility that you didn't educate your daughter on her body and how life is, because life is going to happen whether you like it or not. And getting stressed out about it and shaming about it is not going to help anybody or anything. So again, this goes back to being responsible. And of course, I know this is a super boring lecture. I understand that. I completely understand that. The only thing that I can say is that it's worth it. It's worth every moment, every penny, whatever it costs you, in order to get over that hump, so that you become a responsible member of society. So, because there's plenty of people that aren't, and the way that I don't want to say the market, but the way that society sort of makes it okay to live like that is because people that are responsible are typically people that are just better off financially, take advantage of those people. Not that that's right by any means, but there's a lot of stupid people and they don't deserve their money. And that's a terrible thing to say, and I understand the consequences of me saying that. So the problem is that there are many people that are unscrupulous or just don't give a shit. And they're like, well, stupid people don't deserve money. And then they're willing to take it. And stupid people are easily distracted by, a beer or an alcohol ad or vaping or tobacco or porn or, all kinds of things. And so I'm not saying that these things are bad. I'm just saying that people who aren't aware and disciplined about what they want in life are susceptible to those types of degradations. So, and of course, I learned all this, not in this manner, of course, from being a Mormon. The culture is set up that way. The problem with the culture, though, is they don't explain anything. They don't explain why. And if you start asking questions, then they get a little upset that you're not obeying them. And there's a lot of ego and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I'd rather just say, there's no God, and be responsible for yourself. And then if you want to find some spirituality or call something God, then that's different. So, but that an issue came up this week about that, where I talked about, I was trying to explain something to Sherry about what God really is. And what God for me really is your dreams, your ambitions, the things that seem programmed into your brain or your DNA that you can't help. And it's the things that you want to do. And that we don't know where that comes from. We don't know if it's already programmed or if it's some sort of collective consciousness or perceptiveness of, imagine me being a single cell in the body of a much larger being, right? Or a world. And, when you're in a body like that, like the body controls different cells to do different jobs for different reasons. And that may be something that is what's controlling you and I. And whether or not we listen to it is something different. And so that's really, to me, is the closest thing that you can get to calling what God is really your calling. And that's what they call it in, again, my background, Mormons, where they, it's a responsibility. It's that's your calling. And that's where they go into the beehive, the queen, the queen bee is telling you that you need to be a worker bee or a nursery bee or whatever, something like that. So, and for a lot of people that works out because they don't know enough and they're not disciplined enough to decide or decipher that in their own life. And so I actually, in a way, I kind of encourage religion. And I know this is contradictory to what I just said. For people that it works great because then you don't have to think anymore. But for people like me who I thought a lot and I started asking a lot of questions, and then when people don't want to answer those questions, I'm a different path. That's a different thing for me. So the best thing is to just know yourself. And that goes back to art of war type of stuff. Once you know yourself, you know your limitations, and you also know your specialties and what you're good at and what you can be valuable for. And you have to figure out your position in life and how, because you always got to serve someone, right? Even if, it doesn't matter. You always got to serve someone. So, but you got to figure out what your compromise is, your artistic compromise about your integrity versus, what you need to do to eat. You see what I'm saying? So, and you got to do that. You got to eat shit sometimes, and you got to, Bill Burr said it the other day, I was watching it. I think he was on Conan, and Bill Burr was talking about how Oprah didn't have a lot of choices when she got started. And he goes into this rant about how Oprah stood on the backs of those midgets, because she had like midgets who want to have sex with their mailman's girlfriend or something like that. And he said Oprah stood on the backs of those little people and made her living until she didn't have to, till she could make a better choice. And so, and it sucks that sometimes the system is like that. And of course that is not ideal. However, that's what we have right now. So, and it's not going to stop life from happening. And so again, for me, the best way to handle that is simply be responsible and throw yourself at it. That's really what I figured out was what, when I was in school, they would say, Patrick's a really bright student, but he doesn't apply himself. Well, I didn't have anything to apply myself to. I didn't want to apply myself to anything. I didn't feel committed or part of anything. I felt isolated and abandoned because nobody would answer my questions in the way that I understood so that I could, sort of move ahead. And the system is rigged like that where, especially the law system, oh my God, where a judge just is like, who was that? That lady judge that was telling, this was in Detroit, and some old guy that had cancer couldn't keep up with his lawn maintenance. And she's sitting there berating him in court and calling him disrespectful to his community and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I have cancer and I'm old and I'm having trouble. And she's like, if I could put you in jail, I would. Well, the word got out about those shenanigans. And that's really, I don't want to say, I don't want to say that's my fear, but that is a very bright concern for me when a municipality, city, whatever it is, government, county, gets a little too high in the tower. So, and right now, Arizona just went through this first year of legal pot, and the coffers should be full. And the problem is all these pet projects that these neurotic, self-centered, egotistical shitheads that are in office start doing projects that, City of Mesa just bought a $14 million electric fire truck. Like, really? You couldn't find a better use for $14 million than an electric fire truck? Really? So it's when cities start making those kinds of purchases and those kinds of investments, if you want to call them that becomes very concerning. The other one was, I don't see anybody doing anything about, inflation, of course, is a big thing right now. Everybody's having to pay more. Last night we went to dinner, which normally would have cost us $25. It ended up costing $42. And I'm like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. And we're talking about a dinner for two. And what I realized, though, was that I was paying a lot more in tax, the sales tax. And so it's like, so cities have a really good, municipalities in general, they don't really have an increase in costs because they own everybody and they own everything. But because of inflation, more money comes in. Now, of course, if you talk to them publicly, they'll say, oh, yes, of course, our costs for acquisition are increased and all this kind of stuff. We buy our whatever at Costco anyway, and everybody pays more, which is bullshit. So, but I wish there was more. And this is probably a problem for Google and Tesla to solve, is higher transparency for municipalities and how they use. And again, this, of course, that goes back to the original, purpose of this sermon, which is about responsibility. So the reason why you have to have transparency is because people are shitheads. So people tend to be shitheads, even though they might have a good heart and good intentions and all that kind of stuff. But with the chance that they have to be self-serving and self-congratulating and all this kind of stuff, they are. And that's one of the reasons why I've disciplined myself not to celebrate me. There will be no birthday month celebration for me. I want to be the opposite of that, which is that I want to wake up and not even remember when it's my birthday, that somebody else has to remind me that it's my birthday, or that it's Christmas, or that it's Thanksgiving, because I'm focused on work and I'm focused on being responsible. And I know that's such a downer for a lot of you guys because, you tune into the channel to, learn about speakers and all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, that stuff is good, but if you're not using it in a responsible manner, which is really helping others, serving other people, then you're just as bad as a junkie that you might, discard or disregard. I had a client come in the other day that he can't help himself. Like, he just buys stuff. He ended up getting, approved on some credit. And he ran up all his credit. And he got, all the stuff that he wanted, lithium battery and the big amp and the big subs and all that kind of stuff. And he just, makes a payment on it. But, what I've seen in the past is this cycle of, something tragic happens or something even minor happens. And then the whole thing comes crumbling down again. And his credit pays for it. And he ends up, in the same cycle. And these are the guys that are like addicted to vaping and all this kind of stuff. And, they think it's really, really important to have a really, really big system and to really, really not pay a lot for it. And that's what I'm really against when I talk about, SPL trucks and things like that. It's about that irresponsibility. Daily drivers and people that just enjoy music and bass and all that kind of stuff and want to enjoy it personally, I'm fine with that. That's fine. Again, you don't want to make it something that your spouse is concerned about or your parents are concerned about your spending and things like that. And that's why I encourage you to have some, add some responsibility to it. Number one, because it helps you. It helps you manage what you really want and helps you work for what you really want without having to come out of your paycheck. Number two, it helps you do better in your social structure. One of the things that Sherry had concern for me when we were in Hawaii, because I started collecting, I came across a bunch of really good deals that, somebody gets a car and they don't listen to bass and they're like, well, I don't need this amp. And then they're like, I'll just give it to you. And I'm like, well, let me give you some money for it. And they're like, and at the time, let's say it was a Punch 60. This is 1995. And they go, well, I'll give it to you for $60. And I go, okay, done. So, and then I keep it and then I flip it for $120 later. That's a good thing. So, because it's still half the price or even a third of the price or whatever a dealer would charge. And I got to use it and somebody else got to use it. The only person that lost, of course, was the dealer. So don't be a dealer because those guys are dicks. And they're the ones that are encouraging you to, vape and blow it in someone's face. And if you don't spend 10 grand, then you're a dick and you're not really a man and things like that. And that's another reason why I'm against the whole macho culture. It's a bait. It's a trap. And you'll see police and government officials do this sort of same thing to you, to anybody that questions them. And so that's why it's important to understand who you are and where you are and what you can do and what you can't do. Anyways, this is 30 minutes gone by really quick. Thank you very much for listening. I did want to ask one thing, which was I was remembering my father who died back in 2008. And there was a lot of unfinished business that I had with him. And of course, I've had to let that go, or I have let that go. That many of the mysteries of his life and knowing him as a human being, as a person, I will never know. So, of course, genetically, I know him in a way that, of course, he could never explain. I would encourage my mother, Len, if you're listening to this, or if someone listens to this, if you could say something to her. Last time I talked to her and her husband, my new dad, they wanted an all or nothing. They wanted me completely in their life and full access or nothing. And I go, bye, because I'm not going to give you everything. Because when I did, you guys abused it and you were rude and there was no concern for me and what I needed for my family and what I wanted. And that's not a healthy relationship to be in. So, but what I wanted to say to my mother was that if you want to reveal secrets, and if you want to put it in a video or on audio, that's fine. I can't read your fucking handwriting because you never learned how to fucking write. And I'm not going to sit there and read your diaries. That's some bullshit too. But I do want to put that out there to you. If you want to tell me some secrets, some stuff that you didn't want to tell anybody, but they're perfectly natural human things, then talk about that. That's what I want to know. I want to know about when she, this is before she became a Mormon, because I only knew her when she was a Mormon and when she was trying to be a good person. But then I see it in my relatives and I saw it in my sister of this tortured personality that is addicted to drama and drugs and alcohol. I see it in a lot of my family. And so for my mom to sort of deny that, which is what a lot of Mormons do, is they, like in the Book of Mormon, the play by the South Park guys, you feel those gay feelings, just turn them off like a light. That does not work. That is horrible and it is super unhealthy. And that's what my mother has done. I remember we made a joke one time. We were grown like teenagers at the dinner table or breakfast table or whatever it was. We were having a meal, and I think my mom dropped her napkin, and she bent over to pick it up, and a little fart comes out, and she goes, "Ooh!" And even then, when we're like grown, like we're grown kids, we're basically young adults. She's like, "Ooh, a barking spider," and you're like, "Really?" Like, and then me and my brother both looked at each other. And we're like, "Mom just farted." That was like the first time we ever heard her fart. And that was looking back on it now, that was insane. That was super insane. And then my mom, for whatever reason she chose, to not be herself around us, or that she didn't, I don't know what the reasons are, Maybe it was because she knew she couldn't control herself. Maybe it was because she felt that would better manipulate us or set the example of what we strive to be. So, and it didn't work because there was no money or attention to help us address, again, the questions that we had. And there was no real answers about that. It was always like pray and have faith and, don't masturbate and don't look at porn and just like impossible tasks for us. And so, that didn't work out. And I don't talk to my mother now because I realized that she is out of control and she asks for too much and she's a selfish cunt. And she is basically a grown child that, in this weird sense, wants people to emulate, to imitate her life. She thinks she's successful. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You're retired. You don't have to work. That's your version of success. But it's not mine. And it's not what I need. And it's not what I want. And that's really about what service is giving, imagine you're, a waiter, food server, and somebody orders, a drink and you bring them something else. Like that guy at the fucking Cracker Barrel. He's like, I'll take a water. And they're like, okay. And then they serve him like, I think it was either bleach or like some sort of hand sanitizer. And it's like, that's a lot different than what he asked for. And it's a lot different than what he needed and what he wanted. And so, but that's been the relationship I've had with my parents, both of them. And I is it tragic that I didn't really get to know my dad? Yes. But is it the end of the world? No. And I don't let it stop me, and I don't let it stop me from achieving my goals and the things that I want to do with this life. This life is mine, and I don't owe anybody, unless I owe you subwoofers. Then I owe you subwoofers. but I don't owe anybody in a way that, see, like my brother had this little hiccup. So, because for a while there, I was borrowing money from him because I thought it was going to help bond us and help sort of have both of us grow. And the problem is that the way that he saw money as something that is only good for him. It's not good for other people. And I didn't know this at the time, that he was predatory, and he would do predatory lending, and he liked that because we've been watching that show Billions, and Bobby is a lot like that, where it's he loans somebody money not because he's generous, but because he wants to be in their life and he wants favors and things like that, because the favors you realize are worth way more than the money. And so and we saw this with my father-in-law. That's what he wanted. He wanted the favors. He wanted me to owe him, and when I paid him off early, he got upset. And of course he didn't let me know his intentions and things like that. But the same thing with my brother. My brother, I was paying him like 30% on the loan, and he wanted more. And because he saw me making more than that, and so he wanted a piece of that. And I was like, well, no, dude, I've invested years in knowledge and in real estate and in just inventory and things like that. Like, you don't get a piece of that unless you want to really buy a big piece, and he's like, no, I don't want that. I just want, he loaned me money so that I could get into this place. And he felt that because I was successful with that money, that somehow he owned a piece of me for the rest of my life. And that's completely unacceptable. And so a little dirty laundry to air out, which leads me to my last thing, which is Butthurt Clients. So Brandon Sanders in Chesapeake, Ohio is one of those people. If you guys text me with an order, be very specific about what you want and ask for what you want. I'm not going to read your mind. One of the things that Brandon did was he did a trade with me on a recon kit. The recon kit was for a Sundown SA-15. I think it was D2 or whatever. And so I sent him parts for the recon kit, and then he did one more final ask, which was, he's like, can you send me terminals too? And I was like, fine, it's not a big deal. I sent him terminals as well, which was a bit of an ask. Well, when I got what he sent me, it wasn't something I can use, immediately, and it wasn't worth as much as what I wanted, but I didn't want to sit there and rain on his parade, tell him I'm taking a loss on this and that I'm doing a favor. I certainly don't want to do that. I sort of just left it. The problem is he kept asking for more. And then he's like, come to find out, he wanted the shiny carbon fiber cap, which is of course another $20. And he didn't ask for it. In the text that he threw back in my face as if, the text meant something, I read the text and I said, yeah, I read it right there, which was that he said that he liked the carbon fiber cap. And he even called it by another name. So I couldn't understand what I wanted. And I was like, well, thanks. I just took it as a compliment. And then he asked another question, which was what's the diameter on it? And I said, well, it's 180 millimeter. Again, he didn't ask for it. He just asked a question. So you guys got to be very specific about what you want. And then you may want to do a follow-up about what you want. So, and I may or may not agree to it. So in this case, I agreed to it. I got the coils that he sent me, and then I sent out the package. And then of course he was upset that the cap was not involved with it. I sent him a sundown cap instead. And, and then he's like, it was dusty. It was a used cap, and it wasn't used. It was just dusty. And he got really upset. And I'm like, well, dude, you sent me like $60 worth of coils and I sent you a $150 kit. So I think we're good. You could just let it alone. And he didn't leave it alone. And I tried to bring it up, the fact that he was being a weirdo. And he's like, I'm not being a weirdo. And he got, of course, this is all through text. And, because I said, you're the one that's getting upset. And he's like, I'm not getting upset. And I'm like, okay, you're getting upset. You're the weirdo. I've performed over 100,000 transactions. Over 100,000. When we did the math the other day, I've done over 100,000 transactions. So I know what a transaction is supposed to look like and what's normal. And this was not normal. And I told him it wasn't normal. And of course, he doesn't believe me because he thinks he's right. And he's not. So what do you do with that, people? Again, that's where I go back to. And sometimes I would do a video where I'm stressed out, where I say, guys, lower your expectations. Lower your expectations. Like, yes, I'm a nice person, but I'm not fucking Santa Claus. I'm not Santa Claus, and I'm not fucking Santa Claus. Don't ask me for Santa Claus type shit, and be more responsible about what you want and ask for what you want in life. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you want. Okay? So, and also be prepared that just because you ask for what you want doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it definitely increases your chances by like 100%. Because if nobody knows what you want, or if even you don't even know what you want, you're never going to get what you want. Never, 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 never. So again, it's not the universe turning, its resources to you because you made a list, from the secret. That's not how the universe fucking works. The way the universe works is you get something in your head and then you work towards getting it in your life. And then even when it's in your life, you still have to take responsibility for it. Otherwise, it's going to be a fucking mess. There's a lot more to it than just, and it's hard and it's mean and it's angry, but it's real. And that's mostly what life is. Now, of course, if you look out in society right now, the world is full of fantasy. And that's what you see with meta and video games and all that kind of bullshit, is people just harvesting your time. And it ends up looking like something like the Matrix, where you're in a fucking pod and they use you for energy, some weird shit like that. Facebook or whatever, Meta, was talking about employing, which I'm sure they already do, is they look in your camera to watch your eye movements to see what you pay attention to, so that they can more cater to that. And oh my God, it's super creepy, makes you want to just run away. But for many people, they go, oh, finally someone understands me, understands what I want, which is comfort. And the problem with that is that you're just a baby, you stay a baby. And guess what happens to babies? Bad things happen to babies all the time because they're dumb and they don't know what to do and they don't even know how to fend for themselves. That's what a baby is. So don't be a baby, especially if you're not one. Does that make sense? So anyways, that's enough preaching for me today. I love you guys. Keep sending in the Jizlama things. You talk about gross. You guys are fucking disgusting. I thought I was really gross. You guys are really disgusting and I love it. But I think I'm working with Jerry. We're probably going to end up going with stuff that I came up with Jerry on the graphics. But we want to do a big decal like this. That's maybe like, this would probably be 8-inch or even 6-inch. It won't look like this. I have a design in mind. This is Paris at Berserk, his drawing, and thank you again for that. But keep them coming, and thank you for being interactive with this stuff. I got a bunch of review videos I'm going to do today on the Recoil stuff, as well as speaking of Jizzllama, the Jizzllama component set that you guys can check out. And what else? Mostly I'm just packing subs. That's what I've been busy with the last couple of days. That, and I got a little, I had to do some stuff with the landlord, and the landlord was not happy with me, and that's a whole other issue. And that's why really the position that I'm in the property that I'm in, is not a good match for the next bunch of years that I want to do. And so again, I reach out to everybody. I would love to do like a GoFundMe, but y'all motherfuckers are broke. I need some rich guys that see an opportunity and want to do something big, and believe in me. Watch my videos. The truth and me are in the videos. And if you can see something in that, then you're the person that I want to talk to, because there's a lot of really big stuff that I want to do. I can't believe that we got 5,000 subscribers, that I got 5,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for that. It's a huge compliment to me to know that the things that I've had in my heart are right, that the fucking Phoenix comedy community is a bunch of garbage people, like from The Walking Dead, and also to any family or relatives that just kind of thought I was crazy. Like, go fuck yourselves. You are the one that's crazy, not me. I've had this inside of me. I've always had these dreams and this passion. And when I would get exposed to different vehicles, financial vehicles, I would take them for a ride. I would see how it goes. I want to get to where I want to get. I don't want to just hang out with you and be poor and play video games and smoke weed. So that's what, that's what negative swamp people that want you to just hang out in the swamp, that's what they want you to do. Because, misery loves company. So I don't want to be miserable. I want to be happy. I want to live a great life. I want to make a mark on society, and I want to leave some good behind. So I'm a fucking sweet, tender Boy Scout in my heart of hearts, and that's okay. And that's one of the things I learned this weekend, was that even people in the government think that when you're like that you're to be taken advantage of, and that you're dumb, and that they got to teach you a lesson. And that is insane and super dysfunctional. And it doesn't have to be that way. So you can keep trying and, keep being who you really want to be. I love you. Talk to you later.